Singapore, a shining example of economic prosperity and urban efficiency. But how free is its democracy beneath the gleaming skyline? Hi, I'm Rula, and today I'll be taking a closer look at Singapore's democratic practices. We'll be comparing the 2024 Freedom House report with findings from my own research to unpack the reality behind Singapore's political system. Let's start with political rights. Freedom House gives Singapore a total of 19 out of 40, and it's not hard to see why. While the country holds regular elections, there isn't exactly a genuine political contest. For instance, in the 2020 general election, the opposition Workers' Party secured over 30% of the national vote, but won only 10 out of 93 parliamentary seats. This outcome reflects two key structural issues. First, Singapore's voting system awards seats to the candidate or team with the most votes in each district, so even slight advantages can translate into overwhelming parliamentary dominance. Second, the group representation constituency system requires parties to field teams of candidates instead of individuals, posing a significant challenge for smaller or newer parties that may struggle to form large competitive slates. On top of that, electoral boundaries are redrawn shortly before each election by a government-appointed committee with no public oversight, a practice often criticized as gerrymandering. For example, in 2015, the Workers' Party stronghold of Jussiat single-member constituency, where they had narrowly lost, was dissolved and absorbed into a larger group representation constituency, effectively diluting opposition support. Then there's the long-standing dominance of the People's Action Party, or PAP, which has ruled Singapore since 1959. That's over 60 years of uninterrupted control. Another powerful example of the tight control over political opportunities is the government-imposed strict eligibility requirements for presidential elections, which effectively disqualify most potential candidates. We see this evident in the 2017 presidential election, which wasn't really an election at all. The government restricted eligibility so tightly that only one candidate qualified, Halima Yaqub, who was then declared president without a single vote cast. Freedom House rightly flags this as a red flag for political pluralism and electoral fairness. Now on to civil liberties. Singapore scores very low on media freedom, just 1 out of 4 on the Freedom House report. The media landscape is heavily dominated by government-linked companies. While independent outlets do exist, they're often targeted by restrictive laws. Take POFMA, the Protection from Online Falsehoods and Manipulation Act. It was introduced to combat fake news, but has been widely criticized as a tool to suppress dissent. In 2021, the independent platform The Online Citizen was forced to shut down after repeated POFMA orders and legal threats. And when it comes to freedom of assembly, things aren't much better. Protests in Singapore are only allowed in one designated area, Speaker's Corner in Hong Lim Park, but even that requires a permit and foreigners aren't allowed to participate. Here's a telling example. In 2022, activist Jolovan Wam held up a sign with a simple smiley face outside a police station. It was a solo protest and he was fined for it. As for the judiciary, while commercial cases are handled fairly, political cases often reflect bias. PAP leaders have a track record of using defamation lawsuits to silence critics and bankrupt opposition politicians. Take Chee Soon-won, leader of Singapore Democratic Party. He's been repeatedly sued by PAP leaders including Lee Kuan Yew and Goh Chok Tong, resulting in multiple fines and even bankruptcy, which disqualified him from contesting elections for years. Another example is Roy Gering, a blogger who was sued by Prime Minister Lee Hsien Loong in 2014 for alleging misuse of pension funds. He was ordered to pay 150,000 Singaporean dollars in damages and issued a public apology. These cases show how defamation suits are weaponized, not merely to defend reputations but to send a message. Dissent comes with a cost. Freedom House acknowledges the personal autonomy and individual rights in Singapore are stronger than its political rights. For example, freedom of movement has improved since the COVID-19 restrictions were lifted. Migrant workers, however, still face housing segregation and restricted mobility, especially those in construction and shipyard industries. Singapore does score well in economic rights. It's a business-friendly environment with a strong property protection. But make no mistake, the government still plays a big role in the economy, and criticism of state-linked corporations can invite consequences. Then there are social freedoms. Same-sex relationships are no longer criminalized, which is progress, but same-sex marriage remains illegal and societal stigma against the LGBTQ+ community is still widespread. So what do we make of all of this? Singapore is a unique case, a nation that thrives economically, offers stability and efficiency, but continues to restrict core democratic freedoms. The question we're left with is this: can prosperity justify democratic limitations? It's clear that while Singapore may shine on the global stage, its democratic record remains shadowed by control, constraints, and calculated governance. Thank you for watching.